Hot hatches represent some of the most exciting and accessible cars in the performance world, and right now we're in a golden age with some of the best examples of these beasts since they first started appearing in the 80s.
Top of that list for the last year or so has arguably been this.
The third generation Ford Focus RS, a 2.3 litre, 345 brake horsepower all-wheel drive rocket, with the performance of a car 3 times its cost and all the sartorial elegance of a nylon shell suit.
But the only guarantee when you're king of the hill is that everyone's going to be after that crown, and before too long you have a serious challenger turn up, and well, here it is. It's only a new Civic Type R, and here you get a 2-litre VTEC with 315 horsepower and the far more traditional front-wheel drive setup. And if you thought the Focus RS was a boy racer's wet dream, then this thing is going to make you want to start buying shares in rubber sheets.
Both of these cars are amazing, bundles of fun, cost pretty much the same, track ready, and for the very first time you can actually buy the Civic Type R in America. Our American cousins can finally get out of those JDM dreams and into this car. Now, comparing these two cars is largely redundant from a practical point of view. I mean, if you're actually going to buy one, you'll have your allegiance already and you'll know which one you're going to go for. In fact, you might be one of those people who have read the title of this video and has already left their comment before you got to this part of the video. And to you I say, that's fine. Your opinion is valid. There's a million reasons to pick one over the other, even if the fastest thing you've ever driven is your dad's Camry.
But for the sake of argument, let's assume that you're not an energy-fueled internet troll and you actually have the readies lying around to buy one of these for, you know, real-world driving. And you don't have a pre-built allegiance to either player. How would you go about selecting your ride? For me, it comes down to 3 things. How cool is it to be in around when it's not moving? How much fun is it to drive the way you would every day? And how quickly can you put a huge smile on your face when no one's looking?
Let's start with that first point, how it makes you feel when it's not even moving. Now, call me shallow, but how a car looks is still very important to me. And in a hot hatch, if you're spending money, it is to show off. We can be honest about that. And with the Focus RS, it's a great looking package, but the people who admire it are those people who know what it is, what it can do. Just in its own right, it's very restrained. This, on the other hand, screams aggression. Even if you'd never seen a car in your entire life, you'd know that this means business. Aliens could land down on this planet for the very first time and know that this was quick. Now, I like the idea of buying a car that scares the bejeebus out of people before the engine even turns over, so on the looks front, I have to give it to the Japanese on this one. So, normal day-to-day driving in the CTR. How does that fare? We know it's a beast on the track, we know you can have a lot of fun and set a decent lap time at the Nordschleife, but really, how is it out here on the road? Well, one thing that Honda have changed in this car is the suspension, and it's been made softer across the board in all of the driving modes. And what that gives you is great stability for really high-speed driving and under braking, but out on the road it actually gives a nicely comfortable drive. You add that to things like these seats, which look incredibly sporty but are actually quite comfortable, and you end up with a ride that is quite compliant. In fact, you would never really guess from the inside that this could lap the Nürburgring in a blisteringly quick time. It just feels like a comfortable hatchback. Things like Android Auto and Apple CarPlay are on board, and although I always struggle with all cars' infotainment systems, once you skip over that to Apple CarPlay, you've got everything you need at your fingertips. I'm not a big fan of the switchgear though. Everything to change the volume, to change your input source, are either finicky little touch buttons here or these really cheap plastic nobules on the steering wheel. Not a pleasant way to make any kind of alterations to the control. The interior bugbears don't just end at the switchgear as well. On getting in, I really loved the look of the gear stick, but unfortunately, once or twice when my hands have got sweaty and I've gone for a quick shift from third into fourth, my hand has shot clear off the knob. Occupational hazard that, your hand slipping off the knob, but still an unpleasant experience. So the Ford Focus RS then, it is also incredibly fun out on the track. But how is it in day-to-day driving? Well, on the interior, I've always found the seating position in this car just a little bit too high to give it that really sporty kind of feel. And bar the RS logo and the fancy blue stitching in the steering wheel, there isn't anything really that shouts fancy, but you know, at £30,000, what can you expect? In terms of the actual drive itself, even in its most pedestrian of driving modes, not sport, the normal driving modes, this thing is incredibly firm. It wants to remind you that it's a performance car at every turn. And if you make the mistake of actually engaging the firmer sport suspension, every bump becomes slightly painful and your voice gets slightly bumpy. Let's turn that back off again. It still has all the practicality of a hatchback, huge boot, plenty of room in the back for 2 kids, and I should know because I've had both of my kids on the back seat, while still retaining the ability to absolutely destroy almost anything else out on the road. It is a nice balance between a sporty feel, slightly aggressive, but still completely manageable.
Both cars are practical enough to suit your day-to-day driving, and although they can both go like stink, they are pretty sedate when they need to be. But in terms of comfort, the lower driving position and more comfortable seats in the Civic just clinch it. So again, we have to give this one to the Type R.
Okay, the final and most important test for the RS. Check no one's around, select lower gear, sport mode, and... oh. Even for all-wheel drive, when you nail it on the throttle, there's quite a bit of torque steer that comes through on this thing, and that makes that first fraction of a second a little bit terrifying. And that's what you want from a hot hatch. You want for those 10 or 12 seconds where you have some open road to play with, the chance to really open her up and get a thrill in as quick a time as possible to get back on the brakes and return to being a responsible citizen as soon as you see the fuzz coming around the corner. Right, how does the Civic Type R feel when you put your foot down? I was looking, drop down to 30. When you get a minute, or in this case 10 seconds, just to quickly put your foot down, the Civic Type R gets you to a high speed. It gets you where you want to go in a straight line safely. It doesn't spark that thing, it doesn't spark that smile, it doesn't... something's missing. And I can't put my finger on what it is. It could be a lack of danger, a lack of risk, a lack of surprise. This thing is so competent that when you put your foot down in those small moments, the speed just comes and it propels you forward, and it's brilliant. Something's missing.
Really, this is the real measure of a hot hatch. It's what you buy it for, not to take it on track days, not for massive cross-country drives. It's a practical daily where every now and then you're going to want to put your foot to the floor and feel a thrill. The Civic Type R is fast, really amazingly fast, and stable. No wobble of torque steer can be felt, and even the understeer under pressure has been almost completely dialed out, and it's a better car for it. But the focus, it makes a song and dance about it. You feel like you're driving a hot hatch, something slightly unhinged and lively. On paper, the Civic Type R should have it. It took the points in the first 2 challenges, but when it comes to cars, logic doesn't always hold out. You can't express the true thrill of driving in stats and graphs. The Focus just knows what it is and lets you experience it, warts and all. And although the Civic Type R is a phenomenal ride, accomplished in everything it has set out to do, for me, in the real world, if it was my money, it would have to be on the Ford Focus RS.